Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here with you at the United Nations to celebrate the International Day of Sport for Development and Peace. My name is Andrew Luria. I'm a journalist, a former collegiate athlete, a lifelong sports lover, a dad of 3, and someone who believes deeply in the power of stories. Today, the story we're here to tell is one that we're all writing together, about sport not just as a game, but as a global force for inclusion, for opportunity, and for unity. As an athlete, I have lived the joy, the struggle, and the community that only sport can bring. But perhaps most meaningfully, as a father of 3 kids, I see sport through the lens of what it can teach us. To get up when we fall, to lift others as we climb, and to believe in something bigger than ourselves. The International Day of Sport for Development and Peace is more than just a name, it's a vision, a promise, a challenge to level the playing field, to ensure that sport belongs to everyone, everywhere, regardless of race, gender, background, or ability. And as we look ahead to the second World Social Summit for Social Development in Doha later this year, where world leaders will work toward ending poverty, creating decent work, and ensuring true social inclusion, today reminds us that the path to policy starts with people. And sport is one of our greatest tools to bring those people together. This year's theme, Leveling the Playing Field, Sport for Social Inclusion, couldn't come at a more important moment. In a world that too often divides, through sport we all have the power to unite. In a world that excludes, sport welcomes. In a world that's unequal, sport shows us what it means to fight, not just for victory, but for each other. Because sport teaches us what it means to lead and follow, to fall and rise, to believe in something bigger than ourselves, and to never leave anyone behind. Among our guests today are a panel of athletes, of human beings who have done all of that and more. They have climbed mountains, figuratively and literally. They have challenged systems and changed narratives. They've turned hardship into hope and used their platforms not just to compete, but to uplift. So to everyone in this room, everyone around the world, to students, athletes, families, and policymakers, we invite you to ask not only what sport can do, but what we can do together through sport. So let's begin. This morning, we're going to hear opening remarks from some of the key organizers and champions of this global effort, followed by an incredible panel discussion featuring athletes who have broken barriers and opened doors for others around the world. After the panel, we'll open the floor for a few audience questions and comments, and we'll close with reflections that remind us why this day matters, why this mission matters, and what we can all do next. The co-hosts of today's events are the State of Qatar and the Principality of Monaco, as well as the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. And now to officially welcome us today, it's my pleasure to first introduce the Deputy Permanent Representative of the State of Qatar to the United Nations, Mohammed Khalifa Al Nasser.
Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to welcome you to today's event to celebrate the International Day of Sports for Development and Peace. I'm particularly pleased to share this podium with Ambassador Isabel Pico, my fellow co-chair of the Group of Friends of Sport for Development and Peace, as well as to welcome Undersecretary General Lee Junhua, Head of UN DESA, Ms. Sima Bahouth, Executive Director of UN Women, and all our distinguished panelists and speakers joining us today. I'm especially pleased to welcome Ms. Asma Al-Thani, Qatari mountaineer and the first Qatari woman to summit Mount Everest. Her achievements speak to the power of sports to inspire and break barriers. The State of Qatar will host the second World Summit for Social Development in November 2025. The summit presents an opportunity for us to revitalize social development and to create a more inclusive world. The theme of this year's IDSDP, Leveling the Playing Field, Sport for Social Inclusion, resonates deeply with the core pillars of the upcoming summit: poverty eradication, full and productive employment, and decent work for all, and social inclusion. Sport is a powerful enabler of these goals. It fosters social cohesion, builds inclusive communities, and opens important pathways to education, health, and economic empowerment, particularly for youth, women, and vulnerable groups. When combined with innovation and technology, its potential increases. The State of Qatar has long recognized sport's crucial role as a driver of development and inclusion. We see it as a powerful vehicle for promoting health and well-being, education, women's empowerment, and human rights. This is reflected in our national policies, frameworks, and action plans at the community, national, and international levels. At the heart of this effort is the Ministry of Sports and Youth, which works to promote the value of sports across Qatar society, encouraging sport participation as part of everyday life. working to increase access to physical activity and preserving Qatar's rich traditions through the promotion of national sports that reflects our cultural heritage. We also proudly welcome the world to celebrate sport, from hosting the FIFA World Cup in 2022, the first ever in the Arab world, to the upcoming FIFA Arab Cup in 2025 and the FIBA Basketball World Cup in 2027, as well as many other events across tennis, athletics, and more. We view these events as more than just competitions. They build bridges between people and cultures. They advance the SDGs and foster a more inclusive and peaceful world. Today's event is timely. As we build momentum toward the summit, we must ensure that sport is fully recognized as one of the most cost-effective and impactful tools we have to advance social progress, and to ensure that no one is left behind. I look forward to a lively, inspiring discussion on how we can deepen partnerships, scale innovation, and ensure that sport continues to serve as a unifying force and a driver of opportunity for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Now representing the other co-hosts of today's event, please welcome Her Excellency Isabel Pico, the permanent representative of the Principality of Monaco to the United Nations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luria, for accepting to moderate today's panel. As you mentioned, in today's time of multiple intersecting crises, including climate change, inequality, health disparities, and global conflict, sport is a means for innovative and collaborative solutions to accelerate social development. So this year, in September, we will mark the 10th anniversary of the adoption of Agenda 2030 and the SDGs. Needless to say that we are not on track. And if only 15% of targets have been achieved in 10 years, you can imagine in today's situation how we won't make it to the goals. But, sport can contribute to implementing at least part of the SDGs, like physical inactivity among 80% of adolescents. This is way too high. 33% of adults risk 500 million new cases of preventable non-communicable diseases, incurring 27 billion in annual treatment costs. Obesity and overweight prevalence continue to rise, with projected economic costs to 4.3 trillion annually by 2035. 1 in 5 young people are not in education, employment, or training. This is very worrisome. So against this backdrop, sport has emerged as a proven, low-cost, high-impact tool to address social development challenges and drive progress across sectors. Sport is universally accessible, transformative enabler of sustainable development, capable of delivering measurable outcomes at individual, community, and societal levels through its ability to engage diverse populations and power to inspire collective action. It supports targets related to social cohesion, education and livelihood, gender equality, health, and economic growth. So this has been recognized in the Copenhagen Declaration on Social Development in 1995, and I hope that we will have strong language, even stronger language in Qatar later this year. And also most recently in the Pact of the Future adopted last September. So it is also in the resolution on the priority theme in every session since 2021 on the Commission on Social Development. So today we are proud to welcome athletes and people from the sports sector to once again celebrate the International Day of Sport for Sustainable Development. As you may know, or you may not know because it's more European nomination, Monaco has been named World Capital of Sport by ACES, a partner of the European Commission. So these recognitions after Sofia, Bulgaria, highlights our dedication to sports, democratization, infrastructure development, and fostering an active lifestyle for all. Monaco reinforces its role as a global sports hub, hosting events such as the Formula One Grand Prix, the ATP 1000 Monte Carlo Master, currently on TV, unfortunately for me, and international athletics Diamond League competitions. And it's a way of life. People are lucky to have nice weather, to have access to very free premises. Runners can have a special surface to run on their joints. So Monaco is really, we breathe sport. And as Prince Albert II emphasized, sport plays a crucial education role in society, fostering growth, respect, and well-being. So I'm looking forward to listen to all of you and have a successful celebration. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now for our opening remarks, we're privileged today to hear from two remarkable leaders committed to global inclusion and sustainable development through sport. First, let us welcome Lee Junhua, the UN Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs. Mr. Lee has dedicated his career to building bridges between nations, advocating for international cooperation and sustainable development around the world. Welcome, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for your kind introduction and kind words. Excellencies, dear friends of sport, it is a great honor for me that on behalf of the desert to welcome all of you for this year's event on the Sport for Development. Today, we celebrate the International Day of Sport for Development and Peace under the theme, Leveling the Playing Fields, Sport for Social Development. This is a recognition of the power of sport to bridge the divide and foster a more inclusive and peaceful society. Sports' ability to transcend cultural and social barriers is profound. It unites people across the diverse backgrounds and nurtures understanding, respect, and social cohesion, transforming shared passion into lasting bonds. As we gather today to celebrate the power of sport, we look ahead to the Second World Summit for Social Development to be held in Doha in coming November. We must leverage the summit to build upon the Copenhagen Declaration adopted at the first World Summit for Social Development in 1995, adapting its people-centered approach to today's complex challenges. Sport is uniquely positioned to address the societal issues. It is a low-cost but a high-impact mechanism that drives the individual and community development. In fact, the recent research has increasingly validated the sport's transformative potential for the sustainable progress. Let me just highlight a few examples. First, each dollar invested in effective sport-based policy and programs can yield between $3 to $124 in societal value. Second, engagement in sports, either through the participation of volunteering, correlates the higher employment rates and increased income levels. Third, sport has also been shown to challenge harmful gender stereotypes, reduce the antisocial behavior, and promote the ecosystem, particularly in the vulnerable communities like those hosting refugees. Finally, the global sport market is projected to surge from $840 billion in 2023 to $862 billion in 2033. This actually represents a significant engine for the economic growth and job creation. So therefore, I appeal to you, I urge all of you to reflect how sport has personally impacted our lives and how we collectively harness its potential to drive social progress and advance peace, equality, and sustainable development. Let us commit our concrete actions in harnessing this immense potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Sima Sami Bahous, the Executive Director of UN Women. Ms. Bahous has spent more than 3 decades championing gender equality and empowering women and girls globally, driving efforts at the highest international levels to ensure inclusion and equal opportunity for all. Welcome, Ms. Bahous.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Good morning, everyone. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, athletes, all protocols observed. Thank you to the permanent representatives and missions of Qatar and Monaco, and also to DESA for holding this important event today. It is a privilege to join you on this International Day for Sport, for Development and Peace, and it's great to see the women and men athletes around this table. because it is an important manifestation of what we are all going to work towards and are working towards in terms of the International Day for Sport for Development and Peace. The world is at an inflection point, and conflict, inequality, and the lingering effects of crises have left many struggling around the world. Women and girls in particular bear the brunt of these challenges. Yet, amid uncertainty, sports remain a powerful tool and a powerful force, one that unites, that inspires, and that transforms. We have seen the power of sports from the first ever gender parity Olympics in Paris last year to the record-breaking 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup, watched by 2 million people, to the historic election of the first woman to lead the International Olympic Committee just last month. These milestones prove that progress is possible. But barriers persist. Women and girls face systemic discrimination in sports, harassment, unequal pay, lack of representation, and ingrained stereotypes that limit their potential. The political declaration that was adopted in March at CSW by consensus recognizes this. It recognizes that sports has many barriers for women and girls, but it also recognizes that sports is important for the empowerment not only of women and girls, but of societies as well. So it affirms the political declaration that all countries signed on consensus. It affirms that women and girls deserve equal access to sports as a vital tool for empowerment. This recognition should not be taken for granted, and the fight to strengthen it reminds us that progress is not a given. It is, we have to win it, we have to get it. At UN Women, we are further advancing this fight. Our new sports strategy harnesses sport to dismantle discriminatory social norms, to amplify women's voices, and to create safe spaces for girls to see themselves, not just as athletes, but as leaders and agents of change. This is not a new arena for UN Women. In Brazil and Argentina, for example, the One Win Leads to Another program fosters young girls' leadership and confidence through sport. The UN Women IOC Bridging Project strengthens capacity across Latin America, the Caribbean, Asia, and the Pacific. And our Safe Cities and Safe Public Spaces initiatives in Bolivia, in Guatemala, in Egypt, as examples, increases participation in sports by addressing gender-based violence and engaging boys to prevent violence against women and girls. In the Pacific, Project Gulkipa is engaging parents, educators, and faith leaders to create safer environments for girls in sports. Get Into Rugby Plus challenges harmful gender norms with striking results. In Samoa, for example, 92% of boys who participated rejected the idea that men are better leaders than women. We're all equal. In Fiji, the number of female players who strongly disagreed that harassment was sometimes a girl's fault jumped from 44% to 70% after all these projects that I'm telling you about. Together, we are changing the game. Through initiatives such as the Sports for Generation Equality and partnerships with the IOC and FIFA, UN Women is building a global movement. We are integrated women's empowerment into national sports policies, and that is important, like we have done in Fiji's pioneering strategy to use sports for gender equality and violence prevention. So, Excellencies, this year marks 30 years since the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, a landmark commitment to gender equality. 3 decades on, we know this. Sport is not just a part of the conversation on equality. It is on the playing field where equality is won. We look forward to the upcoming Social Summit in Qatar this November to ensure that we continue to push forward for all women and girls and for sports to enhance social and economic development. and progress. On this International Day for Sports and Development and Peace, let us recommit to more investment in women's and girls' sports. Let us recommit to stronger policies for inclusion and for a global shift in how we value women and girls in sports. Let us empower them to claim their places, not only in sports, but also in coaching roles, in boardrooms, and also in leadership. Sports is not just about playing and winning. It is about transforming lives. And when we level the playing field, we all win. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahous, and thank you all for your inspiring words and setting the stage so well for us today. Now we move to a conversation with extraordinary athletes who have turned their talents and their passions into platforms for positive change. Today we're going to hear their stories, we're going to learn from their journeys, and explore how they're using sport to break barriers, challenge injustice, and create opportunities. So let's welcome our panelists now to the front. All right, let us introduce our panel today. Immediately to my right here is Jamal Hill. Jamal is a Paralympic bronze medalist in swimming and the founder of Swim Uphill, a foundation advocating for inclusive sports and water safety worldwide. His goal is to teach 1 million people annually how to swim. Please welcome Jamal.
Thank you.
And next to Jamal is Sheikha Asma Al Thani, who has stood on top of the world in more ways than one. Asma is a record-breaking Qatari mountaineer, a UNHCR partner, and a pioneer for women in sport across the Arab world. She was the first Qatari woman to summit Mount Everest, as we heard today, and one of very few people in history to climb the highest mountain on each of the 7 continents. She also skied to both the North Pole and the South Pole, completing the Explorers Grand Slam, something fewer than 100 people have ever done. So please welcome Sheikha Asma. Next to Asma is Justin Morrow. Justin is a former Major League Soccer All-Star and champion, a member of the U.S. national team, and in 2021, he was the MLS Works Humanitarian of the Year. As executive director of Black Players for Change and a leader in the More Than a Vote movement, Justin has championed systemic reform, equity, and civic engagement. Please welcome Justin. And next to Justin is someone from America's finest city. That's my city, San Diego. Veronica Sheffy is an all-conference college basketball standout at San Diego State University, an advocate for water equity, gender inclusion, and community empowerment through athletics. Veronica volunteers with multiple nonprofits, including the Mission Beach Autism Awareness Program, looking to expand access to opportunities in sports and within her community. Please welcome Veronica. So I want to start by asking a question that all of you can answer here as you please, and that is that you all have used your platform in many ways to evoke change. What inspired you to do that, and how have you seen real-world results? Why don't we start with you, Jamal?
That's a great question. Can you hear me okay? Fantastic. 2 things I'd say about that. One, right, from an abundance perspective, what really led me to be more than an athlete, I think is a phrase that's been coined recently, is it's a desire to offer more to myself, desire to offer more to my parents, my community, and obviously it's very apparent, right? We live in a global community, and the reality of it is when I win and I get that medal and I get that check or that sponsor, representation matters, don't get me wrong, but usually it stops right there at the athlete, right? And then just from a very real perspective, from a little bit more scarcity mindset, a big driver for me was I knew time was going to pass regardless, you know, like whether you sit on the couch for 5 years or not, or the 5 years still pass. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't want to look up at the end of my career and only have a trophy room. I wanted to be able to see my impact in people's lives and faces.
Awesome. How about you? How you've climbed all the tallest mountains on each of the continents. You've gone to the North and South Poles. Why did you choose to use your platform to make change?
Thank you for having me here, and it's great to be amongst all of you. I think for me, I stumbled upon mountaineering. Honestly, I always wanted to be an athlete as a child, either an athlete or an artist, but sport was always a way where I could express myself. I'm the only daughter in the family. I have 3 brothers, and it was always who can jump higher, who can run faster. I turned out to be the mountaineer in the family, so that's great. But I realized that through my journey, I was able to inspire other girls in the region to dream big, to dream bigger than, and to believe that anything is possible. And to me, a personal story would be, I have my little niece who sent me a video when I was on the way to the North Pole. And in the video, she says, look, I want to show you how I am strong and brave like you. And she gets on the monkey bars and she starts swinging. So to her, her mountain or her North Pole was the monkey bars. And if she was able to believe that she can achieve that, and that was the main inspiration for me and the main goal as I keep on climbing.
And Justin, as an MLS champion, that's to me, that's the title that stands above all. Tell us why you use your platform and how you've kind of seen the effect in the real world.
Yep. Thank you for the question, and thanks for being here, everyone. It's nice to see you. I'm glad that you're here to listen to these stories, listen to the power of sport. Mine starts with my parents. So I'm mixed race, African American. My father is black, my mother is white, and they really just come from completely different worlds, where they grew up, the things that they grew up against. And they had me kind of against the odds. They had me at a very young age, and it was sport that brought them together. They met in college. My father was a wrestler. My mother was a field hockey player. Again, completely different worlds. But they bonded over their love for sport. And as I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, a place that was, when I grew up there, racially divided amongst black and white lines, they were a couple that cut through that. And the power of that and the power of sport is what made me wanted to give back through sport and use my platform in the future. I didn't know I'd always be an athlete. It was something that I aspired to. But once I reached the level where I had a platform that people cared about what I said, I always thought that I would use it to talk about race and how race can be divisive in our world, but really my experience has been unity.
Terrific. And Veronica, you are a college athlete. You kind of going above and beyond with the things that you're doing as far as volunteering and being part of the community. What made you want to do that? And how are you seeing change with the people that you work with?
Also, thank you for having me. I'm grateful to be here. I would say it started, from a very young age, I wanted to play basketball in college. That was my dream. So just to be able to be here and to be living that dream out, I'm just very grateful. And I think it comes from a place of gratitude. I want to be able to give back to the people that are around me, but also where I come from, and just be an example and a role model for those that are watching me. And a lot of times that's what fuels my energy for each day, wanting to show up again and again. Sometimes it's not, you don't feel motivated to get what you need to get done, but reminding all the people that have stood behind you and supported you through the process is the biggest thing that fuels me sometimes. So I think just wanting to give back to my community. I also just want to encourage people to remember it's not only you that got you here, but you have numerous amounts of people that have helped you along the way, and to be able to give back to those people in any way that you can, I think is the most important thing.
It's terrific. And I think, barriers are one of those things that we face in a lot of different ways with sports. And Jamal and I were talking a little bit ago about some of the barriers that come for those trying to learn to swim. So your goal is to teach people, 1 million people a year, to swim. What are some of the barriers that people face in each of your worlds that you think we need to work on that we can overcome?
I guess we're just going down the line. No, that's fantastic. So interesting, right? Swimming is a very unique experience, right? Obviously, it's a sport, me being an athlete, but it's also, dare I say it, the only sport that has the potential to save someone's life. And probably even more prevalence to an audience like this, right? We know about the Sustainable Development Goals. Even just next year, 2026, there's going to be the UN Water Conference held in the UAE, right? UAE, yes. And so that's obviously about water, sanitation, right, and having clean drinking water. What's really interesting is that a lot of the populations that are struggling to have clean drinking water are also a lot of the populations where drowning is the highest, right, for lack of infrastructure. It causes people to have to venture into natural bodies of water, lakes, rivers, ponds, and not that these areas are inherently dangerous, obviously, but they deserve respect and they require education. So the question being, right, well, what are the barriers to education for swimming? Number one, quite frankly, the biggest barrier, and I think this is something everyone here knows, is the socioeconomic standing of a community, right? It's low and middle income communities around the world that experience the most drowning and obviously have the least access to even clean drinking water. Practically, ways that I'm decently smart guy. I made it through school, you know. But people much smarter than me, much wiser than me, that I've had the privilege of working with. Right, we've identified ultimately, number one, typically it's having access to a calm body of water. Now, obviously, in a community like New York, that might look like a pool, but it could also still be a very still water pond. Having access to adequate education, coaches or instructors, right? Someone who knows how to swim, preferably. A lot of times you're dealing with multi-generational aquatic traumas. Number three, and again, this I think goes to certain communities, is the cost of money. A lot of times those coaches, if it's not a parent or a community leader directly, it costs a lot of money. And then obviously the biggest one, I think the most exacerbating effect, especially in low and middle income communities around the world, is time. You know, I live a decent life and I don't even have time to do the things I feel that really matter sometimes, you know, so living day to day, just trying to hit the extreme bare necessities, it steals us of all of our time, right? So there's no time to invest in what might be considered as an extracurricular education, or even if it does hold the potential, right, of mortality in it, the much more prevalent mortality is, well, hey, I still got to eat, I still got to drink, so I have to risk that. So those are the main barriers that we look to address and work with other organizations to address through our work.
And Asma, how about you as far as, you know, standing up and setting an example for women in the Arab world specifically? What barriers do you think women and girls face that we can work on to overcome?
I think from my personal journey, mountaineering or just going out in the outdoors in the way that I am doing it, so extreme sports, is not something that is normal. Breaking those barriers in a sense where I was able to become the first Arab female to complete the Explorers Grand Slam, or to become the first Qatari female to summit Everest, and so on. There are many barriers that are there, but I think a lot of them fall within the fear of something new, and not knowing what happens through it. So me, on my personal journey, a lot of girls ask me, why? How did you convince your family? How did you start? How were you able to do it? And it was, I realized that for me to make that change, I needed to understand what was behind no, or the hesitation of my family. And when I realized that with my father, it was just the fear of my own safety. I'm going to the death zone every day. I'm going there alone with people that he considered strangers. He had a fear for my life, and I needed to. When I understood that, I started to work towards and focus towards the things that were important to him. So how do I ensure my safety? Who do I climb with, and how do I make sure that my dad is okay with that, and trusting that? And since that happened, everything changed in my life. I still go and climb, and it's more of a I would say the conversation starts with, I'm going to go climb, rather than, do you think it's okay that I do that? But after that, I realized a lot of girls are doing it too. And a lot of girls in my community have climbed, but in the Arab world. And I think the major barriers is, I think we need to create ecosystems, show other female role models that are that are achieving the same, tell their stories, and that would help a lot of girls around the world and in the Middle East, in a sense, to dream, but also be able to achieve that
It's
dream.
like your example gives them permission.
Exactly.
To go for it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Justin, with Black Players for Change, I kind of want to shift the conversation a little bit about what leagues, what athletes, what communities can do to practically make changes. For example, the NFL has slogans in the end zone, end racism. Does that actually make a difference, or what can we do to actively create change that is effective?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about just the power of sport as a whole, but athletes are kind of at the center of that, and that's why we're up here today telling our stories. I think athletes joining other athletes becomes very powerful, and that's what we've been able to do with Players Coalition. I have been a part of campaigns to end juvenile life without parole, which we successfully ended in Ohio. It has an impact on a lot of youth, right? We were all around the country fighting for gun violence prevention last year in the United States. We're in schools talking about the importance of education, which is not something that you always hear from elite level athletes, right? So in all of these different ways, I've been able to join other athletes in the NFL and Major League Baseball to sit up with esteemed colleagues and peers like this today to talk about these ways, because there are tangible ways. Yes, it's the visibility piece, it's the inspiration to the young kids who want to become us one day and want to be in our levels, but it's also talking about how we can go outside of sport and affect legislation, affect voting and participation in governance and governments around the world where we live, and make sport safe for kids as well. So those are a couple of things that we've worked on.
And it's interesting because you talk about athletes coming together. Veronica, I want to ask you, as the college athlete here, the college landscape is changing so much between NIL, schools now soon able to pay players, transfer portal. There's a lot of personal investment that is out there. Is that a barrier in any way for young athletes to advocate for change or to feel inspired to make change? Or is there a lot of people just thinking, like, what's the best for me?
I think there's definitely a mix between both. There's a lot of athletes that do move around a lot just because of the compensation that's starting to happen. That's become a huge deal for some athletes. But then I also know others that really want the best for themselves and believe in their team and their organization, believe that they can make a difference in that program alone and trust their teammates and their coaches to make that change. So it definitely depends on the specific athlete. But within the change, I think that each athlete needs to remember why they play the game and why they are in the program. I think that idea kind of gets mixed up a lot, and there's been negative effects, as we can see. But the positive side is that athletes are being able to have more of a voice and more effect on what goes around and what they do, who they advocate for, and stuff like that. So I think each athlete needs to remember, like I said before, why they are there, and then do what's necessary for them to be able to continue to make a positive change for others and everyone that's around them. So,
now, Jamal, you are the head of Swim Uphill with a goal of 1 million people a year. Tell us how you plan to reach that goal, how you're doing so far, and the effect that you've seen in that effort.
Hot seat, right? Give us the numbers. I would lead in with one just saying this. It's a very ambitious goal. And I wouldn't say it's typically there's an SDG wheel behind me. That's what I was looking for. Not nearly as ambitious as our SDG goals. But in answering that question, one thing I just wanted to really touch on is the whole reason I even started Swim Uphill, beyond wanting to. Ultimately, I think it comes down to legacy, right? Wanting to be a part of and have a sense of ownership in something greater than yourself. But the world is facing a lot of problems, right? Huge, massive, terrifying problems. And really in my heart, I just felt like, maybe we could make drowning not be one of them. Maybe that's like a low-hanging fruit that I could be a part of solving. I don't know how to cure homelessness. That's big in LA, Southern California. Obviously, it looks differently all around the world, right? But from food to water, that was just something that drove that mission. So a lot like the SDGs and the progress towards the SDGs. I believe the distinguished lady from Monaco said that, we're about 15% through it, believe it or not, in the first 10 years, right? And Swim Uphill, we've been working for the past 5 years. In the first 4 years, we taught about 20,000 students. That's across the United States and South America. In our 5th year this year, we're already projected to work with 16,000, nearly 17,000 students, right? So economies of scale, and obviously compound interest, right? The compound effect that comes with time. That's what's driving us. It mainly is about making swimming education accessible. Like a fun little thing that we do. So in a room like this, if you were all here for your first swim lesson, there'd be a bowl in front of each of you, about big enough for your face, and then we'd pour water in that bowl, and we'd start with just facial submersion. If anyone here has ever taken their kids to swim lessons and paid for those swim lessons, you've seen the kids running around deck. They don't want to get wet. They refuse to put their face in the water. So again, it's about making it more accessible, whether you're living with disability, whether you have a fear of water. But again, to the greater theme, and I think this is even a silver lining and something really important to remember as we look at our unified vision and mission of the SDGs being achieved, is that compound effects are real, right? So the fact that we've achieved 15% in 10 years means obviously that we've improved more than just 1% per year, which means there is a compound growth going.
Is there a goal of exponential growth, like you teach this number of people, then they teach others as well?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Listen, Jamal Hill will not be in the pool with 1 million people every single year. So I want to clarify that. But yeah, absolutely. I think that's at the heart of, again, even the foundation of this building. It's not just to get together and speak power. It is to get together and create opportunities for people to be empowered, right? And that's really what Swim Uphill is meant to do. It's meant to bring those tools and really just be a bridge. That's what Access is to me. It's about being a bridge.
And Asma, I want to ask this question to you, but any of you guys can feel free to chime in if you have something to say about this. You have raised the flag for refugees at the top of these mountains, other flags as well, is that correct? Talk to us about the symbolism you hope, the effect you hope that symbolism has, and can symbolic things actually, we talked about with Justin a little bit, actually evoke change, or does it need something more?
Thank you for your question. Yes, to me, raising the UNHCR flag is a very personal. It's being able to speak about the cause, speak about what's happening around the world. I think it shows that sport is a powerful tool in a sense where voices can be heard if we stand together, if we work in solidarity, if we all speak the same language, and that's through sport we can make that change. It showcases unity as well. When there's simple sports, could be as simple as kicking a ball, right? Or learning how to swim. It teaches you that, it shows you that you belong to something, but also once you raise the flag, once you talk about it more, and in areas, in places where, because once you climb, you capture that attention, right? And then if you use that platform to be able to speak about these different causes, speak about what's happening in the world, I think it does make a difference. At least it spreads awareness, and hopefully you get people to talk about it more, and the more they do, the more change you can make.
Yeah, for me, just a little bit about Black Players for Change. It was started in 2020. This was the nonprofit that I helped found. It's a group of Black players in Major League Soccer that come from different countries around the world that united in this cause to fight discrimination in the sport, to diversify the sport around the world. We, in large part, became a group in response to a lack of public attention from Major League Soccer, the lack of statements, the lack of support from them. So I do think that public statements and symbols are important, but they're just the start. You know, walk the walk, talk the talk type of thing. And so you really have to put the action behind it. And I think that's where athletes can do a good job to pressure institutions to make sure that they really are putting their money where their mouth is. You know, it does look good to put the words out there, to put symbols out there, but if you don't have the follow-up, then it kind of falls flat.
It's interesting you talk. I mean, again, almost like unionizing the group, the power of the group. Justin, also, as you advocate for voting, for example, some people might say, athletes, stay in your lane. You guys have, heard that from people. What pushback have you gotten in that effort, and what do you do to rise above that?
Yeah, I hate it when, number one, people say that sports aren't political, or when coaches or athletes talk about, I don't want to talk about politics, because to me, sports are inherently political, mostly because it's a business. You look at professional sports around the world, it's a business. It makes money for people. And to do that, you have to get political. You talk about the way stadiums are built around the world. Some of them use private money, but even so, you still have to manage government to get things built. And so there's politicking that goes behind the scenes, and it ends up taking money out of the community and being beneficial for a small number of people, right? So we have to talk about these things, and athletes that study it, that participate in it, give their voice appropriately, can really make a difference in politics. We've done it through voting, we've done it through legislation and participating in government. But if you don't talk about it, then you lose that power.
Veronica, as the youngest one here, I think you're most apt to speak on this next question, which is the power of social media. I guess we all use it in many ways, but your generation has really grown up with it. Talk to us about the power that it has to evoke change, to get messages out there, to get groups of people together, as Justin's kind of alluding to, in order to have meaningful change happen.
Yes, I think a lot of the younger generation obviously use social media to stand for something or get their point across, whatever they want to say. And I've definitely used it for that as well. You guys have all done some pretty amazing things and are a part of, and have founded amazing organizations that help these issues and causes. And I might not be a part of that yet or dip my toe in that yet, but what I can do right now is just help people in my community that are very younger than me and give back in that way. I've done a lot of camps, coached a lot of kids back home, stuff like that I think are super important. Just talking to children that are just getting started out, it can change their whole mindset on and their outlook on sports and what they can do through their sport. It's not just about learning the skills and the discipline to be a good athlete, but it's about what they can do in life, how they can compete, how they can work with others is the most important thing, and that's the thing that's going to matter at the end of the day. So if I can do that as of right now, and then maybe later on, whatever organization I do work for, whatever I go into later, that will just be implemented there. But I think this is a good start to have that mindset.
I can tell you in the media, the way that we tell stories has evolved so much because of social media. The audience is not what it used to be. They're everywhere, and it's in their hands now. And you have that same power in your hands, which is pretty remarkable. I'm curious what you guys think leagues, whether it's a professional league, the IOC, any big organizations can fund right now that would evoke change. And along those lines, what individual people can do. Asma, why don't we start with you as far as what you think people can do in their own ways to see change happen, to overcome barriers?
I think one of the major experiences that we've had in the country in Qatar was the sports events that we've hosted, right? To a lot of these sports events have a major legacy that they leave behind, be it with the World Cup, it was the stadiums, the delivery of the stadiums, and many other projects like Generation Amazing and so on. So I think whenever we do something or whenever we work towards a project or an event, or be it play the game as well, is to really push that specific message that is important to you, a message that can make a difference, but like you said, also act towards that. It's really, really important. And I think whenever we host these events, it's also important that we push for legacies that better help the communities, legacies that is not only creating a stadium, or it's not only creating that economical differences of enhancements in the country, but how can these events expand outside the country itself or outside the city itself? So I feel like the legacy is very important, and choosing the right legacy is also the same.
Justin, as a former Major League Soccer player here, is there something you'd like to see the league or other leagues like it do?
I think the organizations, I've been a part of a lot of sporting organizations in my advocacy now. The organizations that do it best are the ones that decide what are the issues that they care about, and then stick to those issues and go deep on those issues. I think we've all mentioned at different times, like, the world is in a hot moment right now. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening and there's lots to address, but sports organizations can't address everything. And so I've seen organizations get torn apart trying to address everything. But whatever issue is important to your organization, I suggest that you have the meaningful discussions amongst yourselves to figure out and define what those are. And I think they should be dictated by where you're at. Now, if you're a global organization, that becomes a little bit tougher. But, you know, to your point, Jamal, being in Los Angeles, a lot of the sports organizations there try to address homelessness and the unhoused population, you know, because that's what's prevalent in their community. So I think that these decisions should be driven by the issues in our own communities, and they should pick a few and go really, really deep.
Before we move on to have another panelist join us, I'm curious if there's one person that each of you looks to who's inspired you, who's made major changes through sport. Veronica, is there somebody that you can point to that you say, that's the person that I want to emulate?
I think there's a lot of athletes, professional athletes that have made a lot of change. I would say some of the athletes that I've looked to is like Serena Williams. She is a big time name, obviously, and I know that a lot of people probably look up to her, but just seeing what she's done as a Black woman in her space and what she's accomplished, and just her character as well and her demeanor. She carries herself very well, and if you see her in the media, she has a lot of positive things to say. But I think, you know, I can relate to her in that way, and even like her playing and competing while she was pregnant as well is an amazing thing to do. So just seeing her do that has inspired me and the attitude that I want to have towards others and how I carry myself.
That's terrific. Justin?
Yeah, mine would be Dr. Harry Edwards, the principal organizer of the Olympic Project for Human Rights in Mexico City. The legacy that he left there at that Olympics, but then also this field that he's created of sociology of sport and what sport can be, has been lasting for a very long time. And he's just laid bare, there's this thing that we talk about, it's called truth to power, saying truth to power. And he did that in a lot of different spaces, principally in the space of academia. But he's influenced like a whole field of study there, and I take a lot from him.
Asma?
Mine would actually be my parents. The main reason behind it is that my mom, I'll go with each one of them. My mom played a big role in putting me in the right school, in teaching us within our home what equality was. And really treating us equally. Being in a place where we come from, sometimes boys have better opportunities, but in our house, we were all the same. And she always had a saying to me where she said, barriers are the barriers that you create for yourself. You put these walls up, but you can bring them down. But you need to understand how to navigate through these barriers. And that's how my life journey continued. With my dad, it was more of him being open to having that conversation with me. It was not just no, and that's it. There was a couple of no's, but it was never a door shut. It was no, but let's talk. And for them to be able to have that conversation, it taught me a lot. It taught me that we have that power in our generation and in the next generations. If we can treat our children that way, if we can treat kids that way, show them that there are opportunities, but also help them. We can make that change gradually. So they really impacted my life and still do, and I look up to them every day.
Terrific. And Jamal?
Shout out to all the parents, right? If you're fortunate enough to have an elder that right just cared for your well-being, I mean, man, very, very, very wealthy experience. Love my parents, 100%. That said, my athlete's gonna show here, little bit vain. The person I look up to really is like Jamal Hill 10 to 15 years from now. You know, like, I mean, I pretend to be a 40, 45-year-old guy, and I'll even dress up. What are you wearing 10 years, Jamal? Yeah, wouldn't you like to know? But I put on that outfit, and I just make myself recordings, you know, like I speak power into the man that I'm becoming. And it's just, obviously we all have mentors and people that we enjoy, but, you know, if I had to say like something I aspire to, you know, I'm aspiring to be the man that I'm looking to become, you know, so that's a little thing for me.
As a 45-year-old, you look great, and stay young. Stay young. Do we have Evelyn? Okay. So we do have one more panelist represented today, though she couldn't make it herself. So Evelyn Badamalisa is going to join us remotely on behalf of Tegla LaRoupe. Tegla is a global advocate for peace and women's rights through athletics. She was a long-distance runner. She was a member of the Kenyan Olympic team, and she held multiple world records. And she also twice won the New York Marathon. She is a UN ambassador for sport. So please welcome Evelyn on behalf of Tegla. So Evelyn, hopefully you can hear us. We were seeing you earlier. Can you hear us, Evelyn?
Yes, I can. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
terrific. All right, so Evelyn, talk to us about some of the things that Tegla's done to use athletics to foster peace and how governments and sports organizations can collaborate to enhance social inclusion, especially in conflict-affected areas.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Excellencies, and also distinguished athletes that I've seen before. So first and foremost, Tegla apologies for having not been able to make it. She had a mission she had to attend with ANOCA, the African National Olympic Committees, and she couldn't make it on time. And she's actually, as we talk now, she's on traveling back from where she was. So quickly for what Tegla she has done off the track, like most of athletes have said, she definitely has used her influence, her voice to influence peace in Kenya, where she comes from, to influence development. Definitely touched upon most of those SDGs, 17 SDGs goals as we talk. And this is what she's known for. But where she comes from, it's definitely area which is impoverished and lack access in terms of education, health, development, as we talk about. And that's where she had focused her energy by creating schools for children that run away from communities that are going through conflict, and be able to really ensure that these young minds are put together and when a school able to access school, that they will be able to being able to create employment for those roles that they decide to put down their arms so that they can join their community and be able to change their livelihood. She had invested a lot of effort in terms of ensuring that she can advocate for, the water sanitation in the communities that do not have. She had put gender equality and really empowering girls, access education, but also to really join sports movement and be able to assert their role in the community. So Tegla is known for all of that work and beyond, whether it's in Kenya, whether also it's outside in Kenya. She has been able to work in Sudan, where, most of you know that Sudan has been this past year. She's been able to cross the border and be able to really advocate. So most of all those work that I had or other athletes have been mentioning, using their voice to influence policies, to influence the decision when it comes to issues of peace and development, to be able to highlight that the role the sports that can make to advance all these issues. That's what has been Tegla's life, as I said, beyond what she has accomplished in sports. The major things that she has also been able to contribute to is to put the issues of refugees. We all know that, the refugees sometimes are not necessarily understood to be people that can contribute to any of development or peace. But more and more now we've seen, I think in these past few years, where she advocated to have a refugee team included in the Olympics. And for 2 times, she was the one who was leading this mission. And later on to be even known as mother or mama refugees, in terms of ensuring that, yes, refugees also can have this chance to participate and to showcase their talent, regardless where they find themselves too. So that's what really the Tegra Peace Foundation has been able to do, among other things. When it comes to social inclusion, when I asked her what she wanted me to say, mostly, she says, there is no better example, like when you meet somebody like Arhatan. I think Atman is the lady who was speaking before, the athlete from Qatar, that they met in Bahrain. And for them, there was no this issue of, meeting somebody for the first time and, you do not know how to talk to that person about. But the language of sport, like she has said, it was really the common thread that made them meet and talk and really realize how much that they are one people. Another thing that she wanted me to mention was recently last year, I think, when, of course, with the support of Monaco, and I saw the Excellence Pico was there, that we managed to organize together with New York Marathon runners, that we went to Bronx and really be able to bring all different people together and went for a run and be able to talk about all of these issues. So all of that just to highlight how the sports really, all the things that have been said about how we can use sports to ensure social inclusion, which goes beyond boundaries that we always know. We could use it for peace, we could use for development. Yes, so that's what they see, the role of the sport, and that's what Tegra has led to. And and let me just stop here just because there are some questions that I could respond to, and hopefully I have been able to, to bring justice to what she's been able to do in this space. Thank you.
Evelyn, thank you very much. Please extend our appreciation to Tegla for her insights as well.
I will do so. Thank you.
So we're now going to invite questions and comments from the room. We're going to begin with Jeremiah Brown. Jeremiah is a former NFL player and an active advocate for social justice.
Everyone can hear me? Good, awesome. I'm a professional speaker, so I wrote down what I'm going to say and ask just so that I don't go too far left. But mental health, as a former professional athlete, has always been at the forefront of my sport experience, and over the years, how it's brought different communities and cultures together. I wanted to ask this question and pose it to the panel. How can we design sport systems that prioritize mental health, not just as a crisis response, but as a proactive part of athlete development and social inclusion? And I'll provide a little bit more context to that. Oftentimes in sports, what gets glorified is, sometimes, we reached a mountaintop, or we earned a medal in the Olympics, or we've won championships in our specific sport, or earned scholarships. But the mental fortitude that it took to get there, the work, and sometimes when you get to that mountaintop, there's some healing that needs to take place as a result of it, and oftentimes when that healing doesn't take place, we find ourselves as athletes with a platform to say, no, I'm not going to get involved in politics. I'm not going to get involved into the work because there's some barriers from a mental health standpoint. So just wanted to provide that context. I'll ask the question again, and we can go in any order. It is, how can we design sports systems that prioritize mental health, not just as a crisis response in a reactive state, but as a proactive part of athlete development and social inclusion?
I can start because I have some thoughts. I would say that one, they're already providing a space for positive mental health because of one thing which we didn't touch on today yet, which is technology. And so sports for youth can be a positive break from technology. It's engagement in the real physical world, which is becoming less and less these days. Kids are connecting much more through technology than they are connecting through physical presence. So I think that inherently it can be this vehicle for positive mental health if you add that to the positive health benefits that come along with it. So I think that's one way, but then the other way is designing sports and really talking about sports and dethroning like the toxicity around it, especially in youth sports. Not every kid is going to grow up to be an Olympian or climb Mount Everest or play D1 basketball, or play in Major League Soccer. That's just not the reality. But there's so many other benefits to participating in sports. So if we can take the pressure off of kids and have them included in sports for all of these other benefits and really realize that as coaches, as parents, as organizers of sport, I think it'll make what you're saying that much more efficient. It really is this tool for positive mental health, but a lot of times we've gone away from that because of the pressures that we put on kids.
I think so. I get a lot of panic attacks and anxiety, and I went through a journey where I had to learn how to deal with it as I was climbing because I would get it at higher altitudes, and how would I deal with it, and how do I overcome it? For me, mountaineering helped me overcome it. I learned how to climb through my anxiety or through my panic attacks, but I had to do that alone. Because I think the access to the right doctors or the right coaches was not there for me. I learned as I climbed. I think creating like all the different organizations that do have sports or help people reach to where do they need to be it to elite sports or not, it becomes something that is from the beginning is more important than having it, like you said, as a crisis, and making it okay to do so. Because when people say, oh, I need to go speak to a coach or to a therapist or to whatever, automatically there's something wrong with you, and mentally you think there's something wrong with you, but maybe there isn't. But having these tools and sharing these tools amongst different communities is very, very important. For me to be able to do that personally, it's just because I like to learn, so I would go in and figure out ways and find tools. And it's hard to find a coach that in Doha, for example, that can help me through mountaineering because not everyone does it there. But then if I go to someone outside, it's hard because they don't understand my culture as well. So I think to be able to provide these tools to more and more people is very, very important.
What a gentleman, right? One, if I could just like co-sign everything the two of you just said, I am. And then two, just to speak to your point, I think you said something really interesting. You specifically were really talking about the highest of the high levels. Was something you kind of harped on there, and just to acknowledge, you do got to be a little bit off kill to reach the highest of the high levels, right? You talked about sometimes getting there, and maybe you achieve it. Hopefully you achieve it, right? Some people don't, but even just to achieve it, you realize, oh my God, I had to tear up a lot to be here, right? To find that buried treasure, I literally had to uproot all the ground here, right? It's a mess. And that's just a reality of it. I think that's a part of the process, right? That's why it's so elusive. I think that's why it's also such a fantasy, because people can't really imagine what it's like, right? So that just to acknowledge and honor that, right? But also to revisit, okay, how do you deal with everything that came behind it? I think at the highest level, I think it comes down to making proactivity profitable, right? again, we kind of say, you said sports or politics, this, that, and the other, at the highest level, it's got to be profitable, right? And even when I speak about philanthropy, I speak about like, well, how do we make philanthropy profitable, right? Like all the smart people, all these genius ideas, I think we can make a way to make some of the things that we want to do profitable, right? Like the money is a pretty basic thing, right? So that's, do I have a solution to make the proactive mental health profitable? Not quite, right? But I think that's the essence behind it, right? How do we build this into the system that is driven off of profit? That's number one. But then number two, and this kind of goes into acknowledging the certain level of kind of extremes that are necessary to reach these extremes, right? So me, I live with a disability. So I'm a Paralympic swimmer. It's the Olympics and the Paralympic movement, tandem movement. I live with the disability. Now, if you saw me, you would be like, okay, I don't see it. This guy, this handsome guy. What are you talking about? Funny. That is funny. Comedy is not my disability. But I have neuropathy. And at 10 years old, this neuropathy actually paralyzed me. I was in the hospital for weeks. All I could do was turn my head to the left and right. And I went from this 10-year-old boy who could run, jump, skip, do all the things, have a blast, to this 10-year-old boy that from my knees to the soles of my feet, I had 0% nerve capacity. I had to relearn how to walk. Felt like I was walking on stilts, anatomical stilts from my elbows to my fingertips. I had to relearn how to hold a pencil, how to write my name, how to open doorknobs. And then coming out into the world, and, this is early 2000s. I think the world is a little bit more progressive and woke now, but holding an immense amount of shame around that identity. And maybe everyone in this room is not necessarily dealing with a physical disability, but everyone in here, what connects us and why I think sport is so powerful, the thing that unites us in sport is the emotion, right? When we see that person win or we see that person lose, we're there. It's the emotion. And shame is something that every human knows. It's an emotion that we all know. And when you speak about that top percentage, I think, there's a lot of shame around these aspects and things that they maybe had to betray or had to uproot in order to become this person. And maybe part of, making that proactivity profitable is acknowledging that, hey, listen, none of us are monoliths, right? There is no shame there was never any shame for me to be had in my disability and who I am as a human being. There is no shame in not always being the best. There is no shame in sometimes being bad. There is no shame in sometimes, just having this fully unpacked human experience. And I think that's where it starts to get very opaque, is that, well, no, a champion looks exactly like this, right? Like, no, you guys don't understand. Like, I'm up at 4 a.m. and I'm down at 8 p.m. and I don't got time for any other mess, right? Like, well, yeah, maybe I had to lose my family, but that's what it takes to be a champion, and stopping it there, right? Because the shame won't allow us to unpack that. It won't allow us to go into deeper levels. And so I think that's the real culprit, honestly, is shame. And like you said, on a long journey that is a lot of times very lonely, it becomes increasingly more challenging to start to unpack that. It starts to get, pushed way down deep. So just my 2 cents, not necessarily a solution.
It's a terrific question, Jeremiah, because mental health is such an important part of our society.
And it's becoming less and less stigmatized. Like Asma's talking about and Jamal's talking about specifically, that it's not as stigmatized as it once was. It's okay to come out and talk about it. It's okay to do something about it. And I'm curious, Veronica, if you can talk about briefly if they're doing anything at the college level to address mental health as part of the approach to athletics.
Yeah, we definitely have resources at our school that we can participate in just to talk about things. And this doesn't happen in every program, but my coach has also implemented if we do need a mental health day, we can take a day off, and she allows that. And I know not all college athletes get that at all, so I think that's something special within our program. But I think we need to remember we need to be more in love with the journey to get where we are more than the destination, because a lot of athletes have people talking around them. They have a lot of voices coming at them, telling them, you need to do this and this and this to get where you need to be. and there's a lot of pressure. And if they don't achieve the highest achievement that they could possibly get, then it's a failure. And I don't really agree with that notion. It's about what you do along the way that really matters. And the final achievement, the final goal is super, super important, and that's what you work for. But don't lose sight of what actually really matters, you know? So I think if coaches, people around other athletes, whoever you may be, to encourage people to have that mindset and not focus so much on the end goal, because it's special, but it's not what makes a difference, you know? It's who the person you are and what you choose to do along the way that really makes the true difference. So I think that needs to be remembered.
Yeah. The approach has evolved over the years. I think since many of us were athletes, farther and farther into the rearview mirror, it's changed. It's changed a lot. I know we have a question or a comment from Tunisia.
Thank you so much. I'd like at the outset to thank Qatar and our friends from Monaco for organizing this event. I'm not a champion, but I consider that today I am who and where I am thanks to sport. I played handball for 12 years and I served my country with the national team. And today I suffer from I had 3 surgeries on my knee for the ligaments. So I struggle and I have the same conditions as you, Jamal, but I'm proud. And if I had to repeat it, if I had to go back in time, I would do the same thing and I would play, because I consider that the values sport taught me are the values I'm using today in my work, and they are helping me a lot to succeed what I'm doing. The values of perseverance, waking up early, pushing through the pain, train hard, how to learn to enjoy success, but also accept defeat. And this is something that only sport, I think, can teach us. It also teaches leadership, because when you are just 10 or 12 years being a captain of the team, dealing with different characters and different personalities, it teaches us a lot. And skills I learned through handball: teamwork, determination, emotional control. These are the same skills I'm using today in negotiations. So I think that sport shape our personalities and help us to deal with our daily life and our professional lives. But as I reflect my journey, I'm deeply aware and concerned with girls and women in developing countries, because I consider that they're not as lucky as girls and women somewhere else in the world, because of the lack of infrastructures, resources, cultural norms. And I think that today we have to help these girls to become the champions they would like to become and fulfill their dreams. And we need to support them, and we need to make champions, women and girls who are champions in their societies and who are breaking the barriers in their communities. We have to hear more from them and make them more vocal and more expressive and more to serve as an example, to serve as a leader in their communities. And I'm taking today the floor to say that girls and women in developing countries need more assistance and support. And because sport, it does not only build champions, but it changes the future, and also it helps to advance social inclusions that we are dealing with today. So this is the message I wanted to convey, and I really dream of seeing more resources to women and girls in developing countries to be as equal as women and girls in other societies. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from around the room? Jeremiah?
Can everyone hear me? Is it on? Cool. Ozma, you said something that was so profound to me that really resonated. And I would love if you could maybe just share some insight on, did that level of emotional intelligence come natural for you, or did you develop it when you didn't focus on the no behind why you couldn't, or your parents didn't want you to, specifically your father, and you focused on the why behind the no? I just thought that was just so profound, because, you know, as the woman Indonesia, the woman from Indonesia you mentioned Tunis. I'm so sorry. Mentioned about just empowering young women. Sometimes it's the no that they receive just because of just the fear. So if you could just maybe expound on that just a little bit, that would be very helpful.
I think one of the most important things for me, honestly, I always wanted to do something that I always wanted my parents to be happy. I never wanted to do anything that made them angry or sad or anything in that perspective. And I always believed there was a way. I didn't need to really push in a way where it becomes very uncomfortable. But I felt like I had to take them on my journey. I needed them to understand why I was doing what I was doing. And it was the conversations that we had. So, for example, to be honest, like when people ask me why did you start, it was a list that I wrote to myself, and a list that I wrote to myself at the age of 13. And on that list, I had simple things. And at that time, I never thought I could do them. Like even drive a car was in that list because when I was 13, no woman drove cars. Or climb a mountain was there, and I reached to that list. But I remember a simple thing of getting to my dad and to tell him I want to drive. And he said, first answer was no, you don't need to drive. And came back again after a couple of months and I want to drive. He says, we'll think about it. I leave him for a couple of months, come back again, I want to drive. He says, okay, finish university, maybe we'll talk about it. So I was very, very patient, and I felt like patience was important, and it was a two-way conversation. The other person needed to be able to be open to have that conversation, but I needed to find ways to understand. And whenever he said no, it was always why. Why no? I would never ask him that, but because that will then get him to be defensive. But I would think about why. And I started to understand my dad's personality, his background, where he needed, why he was worried. And my dad also, I'm his only daughter. So for him, he needed to make sure that I was in the right place, I was protected, I was supported, and all of it. And that's how I started to understand him, but then start to plan my process that way. It took me 4 years to get my dad to be convinced to drive. After 4 years of me asking him, I was able to drive, and then he put a you can go to work and come back. And then it was like before 4 p.m. you shouldn't be out alone. You should be. But it started to grow to now I would come home. If I needed to come home at 3 a.m., I come home at 3 a.m. because of work. It's okay. But I just needed to understand that and not really push, but to be able to showcase that they can trust that I can take care of myself. And I feel like with a lot of girls that is very, very important because I've had them ask me that question, how? And how did you cope with your parents saying no? And we come from societies and communities where our family is very important. What our parents and what our uncles and aunts and grandparents say is really, really important. And it's very determinal. So if they say no, it's a no. So for me, I was able to have that conversation, and it really helped get me to where I need to be now.
Having that support system is important, and Jamal talked about that as well as far as learning to swim, having the support system around you to be able to make it happen, and also a lot of patience. Clearly,
a lot of patience.
Clearly that helps. All right, to conclude our panel today, it's my privilege to introduce Mr. Luis Moreno. He is a member of the International Olympic Committee and the IOC's permanent observer to the United Nations for our concluding remarks.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to the athletes for a fascinating conversation. Excellencies, distinguished guests, esteemed athletes, and friends. It is a pleasure to be part of this conversation today, and first of all, to thank both Qatar and Monaco and UNDESA for taking this initiative. We have heard from athletes, from countries, from UN leaders on how sport can break barriers, empower marginalized communities, and create opportunities for a more just and inclusive world. At a time when our world faces growing divisions, political, economic, and social, Sport remains a rare and unifying force. It has the power to bring people together across borders, across cultures and backgrounds. And nowhere was this more vividly demonstrated than at the Olympics and Paralympic Games in Paris 2024. Despite the geopolitical tensions and the conflicts that cast a shadow over our world, these games stood up as a beacon of unity. Athletes from the territories of all 206 National Olympic Committees, as well as the IOC Refugee Olympic Team, they all competed fiercely against one another, yet lived peacefully together in the Olympic Village. This is not just an inspiring story, it is a lesson for all of us. We must ask ourselves, if athletes from nations divided by war can come together in peace, why can't the rest of us? Since Copenhagen in 1995, sport has repeatedly been recognized as in UN policy frameworks as a powerful enabler of social development and the Sustainable Development Goals. But now we must take the next step. As we look ahead for the second World Summit on Social Development, the case to invest in sports for social development must be made loud and clear. Sport is a necessity, and during times when resources are limited, it is exactly the type of low-cost, high-impact tool which we need to accelerate social development. We applaud that locally driven sport-based policy responses are increasingly being prioritized in many national policies, in strategies and social development action plans of governments, including many with us today. The themes we have explored today, gender equality, refuge inclusion, disability access, racial equity, and youth empowerment, are all profoundly linked to sports' ability to create upward socioeconomic mobility, to foster understanding, and drive positive change. In Paris 2024, we had a landmark moment in this journey. It was the first Olympic Games delivered entirely under the principles of Olympic agenda reforms that are more inclusive, more sustainable, and more reflective of the values that we champion. They were the first Games with full gender parity on the field of play, demonstrating that equality in sport is not just an aspiration, but an achievable reality. These Games also highlighted the importance of sustainable and socially responsible sporting events, setting new standards for future global competitions and their legacies. At the same time, sports remains underused for social development. This can change, and today there are more opportunities for governments to take advantage of sport as a low-cost, high-impact tool which can bring benefits for everyone. Sport is a rapidly growing sector, growing by more than 5% annually for the last 20 years. And it is projected to continue growing by 5 to 9% annually by 2030, and by up to 15% in some regions of the world. On the eve of the Paris Games, the Sport for Development Summit, an idea that I proposed here in New York, brought together heads of state and the sports sector, and together they committed to invest in sport for sustainable development. Following this, just weeks ago at the Finance in Common Summit in Cape Town, development finance institutions agreed to support governments to use sport for development if governments are interested. Sport alone cannot create development and peace. That is our collective responsibility. But sport can catalyze and support social development and inspire peace. It can build bridges where walls stand, and it can provide opportunities and hope where there is despair. That is why I appeal to all of you, governments, policymakers, and UN leaders, to give sport a place in the discussions at the World Summit on Social Development, because we need it now more than ever. We cannot afford to overlook sports' role in shaping the future of social development. And if we truly wish to build inclusive societies, we must ensure that sport is not an afterthought, but a central pillar of our strategies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moreno. And now, as we wrap this up for a special unveiling, please welcome a representative from the Division for Inclusive Social Development at the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, who will introduce the Stamps for Peace initiative.
Thank you. On the program, you see Mr. Charles Katonga. I'm obviously not Charles. I'm Wenyan. I'm Wenyan Yang. I'm the chief of the branch called Global Dialogue for Social Development. So it's truly an honor to be here. And our director, Charles, sends his personal greetings, but due to unforeseen circumstances, he couldn't be here. So I have the honor to be here. Where's he going? Oh, over there. Okay, I'll go over there.
Okay. And we're going to invite Ambassador Pico and Ms. Bahus to unveil as well, please. Unless you'd like to pass it on. Okay.
Oh, wow.
All right.
What an honor.
You will cheat on from here. Rock climbing. Where's the rock?
Bottom middle.
Okay. Oh, here. Yes. Rock climbing and volleyball. In addition to the stamps, the 3 souvenir sheets on the left, to my left, they also feature a okay, let me see. Oh yes, the sheets feature table tennis, basketball, and gymnastics. The souvenir sheets also feature a statement by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, in English, French, and German. The text reads in English as follows. Sport has a unique and transformative power. It transcends borders and unites people, fosters teamwork and resilience, and promotes a spirit of inclusion. Each of these values is essential to the work of the United Nations and for shaping a more healthy, sustainable, and peaceful world for all. Quote, end of quote of SD's statement. The artwork on both the stamps and the souvenir sheets features illustrations by Bill Butcher of the United Kingdom. The overall design of the stamp series was accomplished by Sergio Barada of the United Nations Postal Administration design team. The stamps and related products will be available for purchase at the UNPA stamp counter located in GA1B lobby next to the gift shop. Now, the United Nations has long acknowledged the universal power of sport to bring together people of all ages and abilities. The Department of Economic and Social Affairs, through its Division for Inclusive Social Development, leads the substantive support to member states on sports for development and peace. We achieve this by integrating sport into intergovernmental processes, conducting evidence-based research and analysis, implementing capacity development programs. The United Nations Postal Administration plays a unique role in sending messages around the world about the activities and achievements of the United Nations through the issuance of postage stamps. I know I speak for a number of UN entities when I say thank you for advocating for the power of sports for advancing development and peace. Thank you all for attending this very special event. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our amazing panelists and our special guests today for your stories and for your inspiration and how you're creating real change in the world. We urge everyone here to feel motivated to take something from this forum that they can put into action. And as we look forward to the second World Social Summit for Social Development this November in Doha, we hope that these conversations continue and that we keep moving forward together. Jackie Robinson said, "A life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives." So thank you to each of you for showing up, for speaking up, and for continuing to help sport become a powerful tool for inclusion, equality, and peace across the planet. Thank you, guys.